we've talked before about kind of the white belt mentality, right? This idea of, you know, it's great that you know a lot of stuff, but to acquire, you know, all which is knowable is going to be a life journey. You're never going to know it all. Cassio, who can whoop up on just about anybody over at your at his jiu-jitsu school, he doesn't know it all, right? He knows a lot. Yeah, he knows a lot more than you do, right? And he knows a lot more than many of the people in there, and maybe knows more than a combination of everybody put together. But he still doesn't know it all. And even like Hoist Gracie, multiple-time UFC champion and sort of the godfather of jiu-jitsu in some way here in the United States. Even he doesn't know it all. Yeah. Right? You got to have this understanding and this idea that you don't know it all, and you should be open to something, you know, something else that somebody else might suggest to you.
Most definitely. And I think that the hardest thing about that is putting yourself around people that do know more than you, or wanting to put yourself around people that know a lot more than you.
Yeah, so you're not just the top dog.
Exactly. You know, that's why I found like my biggest jump in strength came when I first started coming here to train. And I guess the thing that allowed me to progress that way was really not having an ego about not being as strong as some guys in here, or even when I got stronger in a certain lift in here, still wanting to talk to certain guys that I knew may have a little bit more technical knowledge, even though they might not be as strong as a lift as I am, to see what they see about that lift, you know? And I think that's been like my biggest, I guess, strength when it comes to progressing at certain things. I'm always asking questions. And I don't care if like I'm asking too many questions. Like over at Cassio's school, when he's teaching technique, if I have to ask 2 or 3 questions to get something right, even if people are waiting there, I'll do it. And it's just because like I know that I think people are scared of asking questions because they're scared of what everyone else around them thinks about them asking a certain question. Right. You know, they'll be like, oh wow, everyone thinks I'm dumb, or everyone thinks I'm not getting this. That's fine. But if you need to ask more questions to understand something, you're going to get it much better than everybody else. Even when you get to a high level of something too, still being open to taking criticism or, I guess, advice from the other people around you who may be better and potentially may not be better. I think that's where that whole thing, you know, lies. I even see you, you know, getting tips from certain people in terms of like your deadlift, even though you've been doing this, or certain movements, even though you've been doing this for tons of years. And that's huge. You know, that'll just allow you to get to mastery of whatever it is at a much faster pace. But even when you're there, you know, you still have a lot more to learn. There's a lot there.
I think asking questions is a way to really advance your career in a lot of ways. No matter what it is you're doing, it shows other people that you care, you know, and maybe you're not even asking a question to advance yourself. Maybe you're just asking a question because you're curious on like what the other person likes to do. But asking questions is a really important thing. Obtaining knowledge about what somebody likes to do, what's their favorite movie, all these things, they're all things that will help you advance, because at least it shows that you give a shit. And in this case, you know, we're kind of more talking about like fitness and that kind of stuff, and maybe even advancing in your career and being able to make more money. But once you start asking questions that way, then I already know, oh, Nsima's like inquisitive, like he cares, you know? So like when you go to do a deadlift, I might be watching you more. Maybe other people that you've asked questions to in the gym, maybe now they're all invested in watching you because they have an understanding that you care because you took the time to ask a couple questions. Yeah. You know, and that's kind of the same thing with like, it's a little off topic, but even investing your time into somebody in either A, helping them, or B, just encouraging them. Just putting your hands together and clapping for somebody when they're about to go. Hey, let's go. You can do it. You may not even want to be vocal. That might not be you. Like you might not feel that comfortable with that. But that's where you go outside of yourself a little bit and say, this isn't for me. This is for them. And this is the support. Like I'm hoping that people are watching me when I go. I hope they're making some noise for me when I go. I hope they're cheering for me. Who knows? It might be that little tiny thing that helps. Maybe somebody tells you something right before you hit the platform and it just eases your mind a little bit, helps you concentrate on what's important, and you nail the lift. So all these things are little cheats, little secrets into advancing yourself.
Uriah, Uriah Faber. Everyone knows who he is, right? Yeah. So Cassio used to work with Uriah when Uriah first started jiu-jitsu way early on. And Cassio always mentions how Uriah was literally the most inquisitive person he's ever worked with. Even though Uriah had a really deep wrestling background before he started jiu-jitsu, when you start jiu-jitsu, it's very different from wrestling. So every time Uriah would roll with somebody, whether it was an upper belt or lower belt, he'd always ask questions after that roll. Every single roll. Doesn't matter if he beat them or not. He'd always ask questions. What did you notice here? What did you notice here? What did you notice here? And that's the difference between him and a lot of other athletes. Like, you see where he ended up in terms of the UFC. You see what he's been able to build. And that's because, like, he's had that mentality all through his athletic career. He probably also has that as far as business too. But being extremely inquisitive and trying to figure out every possible way to get better, looking around you and seeing what other people notice about what you do, no matter what their point of view may be extremely helpful towards progression, So it's learning how to, like, not be insecure about asking questions, not being scared of doing that. And if you can't necessarily, because I know not everybody, for example, as far as the gym goes, you can't always find a gym where everybody's stronger than you. Then you might just have to pull a Bryce Lewis. You know how Bryce Lewis is, like, he's super strong. He trains in his garage all the time, but he's always obviously figuring out what he can do to improve in terms of strength, etc., on his own.
Maybe he's even just asking himself questions.
Exactly. Like, right? you have to be able to, if you can't get it from other people, you got to be willing to seek out that information. And, like, if you are the best in the room, then you have to be the one to always seek that information out for yourself. I think that's harder in itself, to have to do that on your own without other people around you. But you're going to have to do that.
Well, a lot of the answers are within. If you really just ask someone, hey, like, what are 2 or 3 things you think you should do? I've learned this from some really high-level people that have just executed really well in business. They're the kind of people you'll get around, and they make you feel so dumb because you'll ask a question, and then they'll just answer your question with another question. They'll basically say, oh, Nsima, okay, so you want to double your income from last year. You want to do that over the next 2 years. Okay, cool. So what are 3 things that you think you should do to do that? And then you'll say, well, I could probably be more organized. I could, A, B, C, right? You'll have 3 answers probably pretty quickly. I could maybe in order to make the money that I want, maybe I have to go to jiu-jitsu less, and maybe there'd be a couple things, right? And boom, you're done. And then my response would be, well, you should go do that. That'd be great. And the answers all came from within. And a lot of times we at least sort of know the answers. The problem is we got that other side of our brain that just talks you out of everything all the time. Because then you're like, well, yeah, I could do that, but then somebody else said this, so I should try it this way.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I could go to jiu-jitsu less and make more money because I could put more time into a couple other things, but no, I like doing it this way. But then you're talking yourself out of, it's like, it's either the priority or it's not, or it's secondary, right? So then you have to try to make a decision on where it lies. But the main thing here is just to keep at the front of your mind is that you should always be learning. You should always want to learn new shit. I'm either lifting, in a meeting, or I have headphones on pretty much all day, or with my family. Pretty much all day long. And I'm not just like, well, I'll listen to music here and there, but I'm not just listening to music. I'm usually listening to something that will give me information. Sometimes it's more stuff that I want to listen to, but a lot of times it's heavy shit that I don't want to listen to. But I'm like, I know in here there's going to be a crumb. There's going to be a crumb in here. There's going to be some little silver lining in here that I can find, that I can use, that can help me out, or that can help me help somebody else.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this is boring as shit. Some of the stuff I listen to is awful. And I'm like, I don't want to listen to this, or I don't want to listen to this audiobook, but I know that it's good for me. So the trick is to try to balance out between the things that make you happy versus the things that have the opportunity to make you great. versus the things that can just make you better. You know, how do you don't always want to be so obsessed with, great, because that's, who even knows what that means.
Yeah.
Then you got to kind of determine, okay, well, what does that even mean? But let's just say better. Let's just say you want to be better. And to even say you want to be better than yesterday may be too big of a burden. Like that might be too much of a responsibility. But how about you just work on being better overall over a period of time, whatever period of time you want to be better than you were last year. That might be a little easier to consume than, because if you try to be better at everything each day, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
You try to be better, a better person in your relationship. You try to be a better leader. You try to be a better coach. You try to be a better son. Now it's like, okay, well, we're really piling up a lot of stuff, and maybe we should just start out with something a little bit more simple. I'm just going to gravitate more towards the things that are going to make me better rather than just the things that make me happy. Things that make you happy might be things that are entertaining, going to a movie, going off your diet plan. And then there's other things you can get into, which would be like drinking or porn or some of these things that are like, they're kind of quick fixes, but they're all part of, well, they're not all part of everyone's life, but they're all things that are enticing, things that are like there, then things that are always. But if you spend all your time, whacking off, you're not going to be. And basically, I mean, you can kind of look at it even further. But if you spend all your time like fantasizing, then you're not really in reality, and you're not really working towards the things that you should be working towards. You're not really putting in the work. You're just sitting there thinking about it.